Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Collision. Daniel here. Video game movies are almost always just atrociously awful. Is Uncharted the one to break the trend, or is it another in a long line of just disappointing video game adaptations? Let's talk about it. So like I said, as people know, video game movies are just notoriously awful. I still have emotional, deep scarring from seeing the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie as a kid, arguably the worst movie ever made in the history of cinema. But I was excited for Uncharted. It looked like kind of sort of my jam, sort of the genre I like, just that fun kind of swashbuckling adventure movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. I'm a fan of those kind of movies, so I was excited for this. I'll admit I haven't played any Uncharted video game, so I have no idea if it's faithful to the game or the characters. The main character Nathan Drake, played by Spider-Man, Tom Holland. I don't know. I don't know what the character's supposed to be like. All I know is what I saw on the screen for 2 hours in the Uncharted movie. But I'll say after watching this movie, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it actually quite a bit, maybe more than most people. It's definitely, I would say it's exactly the kind of the movie that I thought it would be going in. This is a dumb movie, but it's a fun kind of dumb movie that knows it's a fun kind of dumb movie. It's not a movie that takes itself seriously, and definitely not a movie that should be taken very seriously. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense, that is quite dumb, but it's fun, and I think that's sort of what I think an adventure movie should be. I would maybe describe this movie as like a mixture of like National Treasure meets Indiana Jones, but if like Indiana Jones, instead of being noble and wanting to turn all his artifacts and findings into the museum, he just wanted to sell them and get super rich. All these characters they're somewhat selfish, kind of greedy treasure hunters. They're sort of they don't have the noble spirit of trying to preserve ancient artifacts. They're just trying to kind of get rich, which just makes it kind of a fun thing. As far as like the characters. Because really, this movie, I think part of what kind of elevates it beyond maybe being as bad or disappointing as it could have been is Tom Holland. He's a good actor. I'm a big Tom Holland fan. At least to me, I think he's one of the few kind of leading male actors right now that can carry a movie just sort of on his charm, and he's likable enough. He's playing a very similar character to like his Peter Parker character, just maybe a bit more of like a world weary, he's not as like good of a person as Peter Parker, but just sort of that same kind of boyish, likable charm. And I think he does well in this movie. He's engaging. He's kind of paired with Mark Wahlberg. He's another guy that I just find amusing, kind of the cynical, more like jaded, kind of heartless criminal that he kind of plays off of, almost like a contrast of like this is where he could become if he doesn't sort of take a bit of a different path that he's going. And Wahlberg's fine in it. It doesn't seem like he's quite as excited to be in this movie as Holland is, but he does bring some of that this sort of cynical, kind of funny lines. And as far as like the female characters in this, the main one I was not familiar with in any other work before this, Sophia Ali plays Chloe, who I'm guessing is a video game character. And she's good too. She adds to the dynamic, although she's kind of bizarrely just sort of sidelined and pushed to the side for the entire third act of this, which I thought was a strange decision. But the actors are fine. There's other kind of notable people that show up and pop up. But really, the kind of the Tom Holland Wahlberg dynamic, I don't think they necessarily have quite as much chemistry as this film wants them to have to set up that like kind of buddy adventure thing. But I think they had enough chemistry to get some laughs and to kind of carry the movie, even when sort of the plot and stuff going around them is maybe not quite as exciting as it could be. On that note, this is definitely a film that you can't think too hard about, or else you start kind of realizing all the holes and stuff that's going on. Typically, I'm not the kind of person that's going to be sitting back, like real snobby and just trying to like spot any kind of plot hole. And this is a movie that I knew is going to be kind of a crazy, over the top movie. But a lot of the stuff that does happen is kind of dumb if you think about it. A lot of like the puzzles they solve really don't make any sense for what they're doing. Like they're kind of going here and there and there and there and kind of end up right where they were, and like they could have done it way easier than they did. And even like I think some like Tom Holland's character like solving these puzzles are supposed to be this moment where you like, oh, he's so smart, he's a treasure hunter. But at least for me, it more just sort of exposed like how stupid all the other characters are, that like you guys have been searching for this treasure for like your whole life, and like you couldn't solve this super like easy simplistic puzzle that some other kid solved. Like I feel like my own kids could solve this, and even like how they solve it isn't necessarily always all that clever. You just sort of kind of watch him go through his little montage of figuring it out. So stuff like that, don't if you think too hard about it, you realize that this is kind of a dumb movie that doesn't make sense. But I think if you don't think too hard about it, it's fun, and it definitely by the third act, this movie kind of really embraces the fact that it's like a video game movie and it's just crazy. And the first two acts of this movie are they're fun and over the top, but more kind of a little more grounded and kind of less like fantastical. Then the third act, becomes like almost a different movie where if you've seen the trailers, there's like pirate ships, like ancient like Spanish ships, and they're being like lifted by helicopters and they're flying over the ocean. People are like boarding each other, and like they're like all of a sudden they're like, even though these are all guys with like machine guns for two acts, like now they're fighting with like swords and stuff. And like, it's like in that way, it's like, what is going on? This is dumb, but it's fun. It is kind of captured that like swashbuckling kind of fun adventure movie. So at least for me, is all I wanted from this movie. I didn't need it to make sense. I just needed it to be fun. And having not played the game, I don't have any expectations going in. In the end, like, I don't think this movie is one that proves how to make video game movies, but I do think it kind of transcends sort of the muck and mire of most video game adaptations. And overall, I found it moderately just sort of fun and enjoyable. As far as content, kind of to consider going in on the surface, profanity. I didn't hear if there was the one F-bomb you always expect. There might have been, but I didn't notice it. So it definitely wasn't like an upfront use to some kind of joke like most of these sort of movies. There were just kind of frequent, kind of more minor profanities. Mostly the word starting with the letter S is used quite often throughout this movie. But other than that, I also didn't hear any kind of like innuendos or any of that kind of profane stuff, other than just sort of mild profanity here and there throughout. Sexuality, there's not a whole lot either. Maybe you could say that there's several scenes where male and female characters are like kind of, they're coming out of the water and they have like kind of lighter, like white or gray shirts, and they're kind of tighter and maybe somewhat suggestive. But there's not like sex scenes or nudity or anything in that line. And violence, people die. This is a kind of adventure. People like fall from things, and you just sort of know like he didn't survive that fall, but it doesn't like show his body, on the ground dead. Or a couple of people do die in maybe a little more violent way, but this is not like a violent, gratuitous movie. And I would also say we don't normally kind of talk about like substance stuff in movies at the Collision, but this one just did stand out to me that like kind of alcohol use in this movie is just like front and center in almost every scene. The characters are always constantly talking about alcohol. They're always drinking. Tom Holland's character is a bartender, which is where some of that comes from. But I don't know, for me, it seemed almost like because he still kind of has that boyish kind of look to him, that this movie was kind of using like alcohol as the like shorthand to like, he's not a boy, he's a grown man, and he's worldly and he's bad. And I don't know, I found that over the top, but I don't think it's necessarily anything that is super concerning, but it's something to note, I guess, going into it. As far as stuff going on, kind of beneath the surface themes, again, this is a dumb adventure movie about like finding treasure and fighting with swords on flying pirate ships. So it's not a movie that's trying to really say anything. It's just trying to be an entertaining, kind of fun movie without really any kind of message. So you have to look maybe a little further beneath the surface to find kind of some themes and stuff. But I think there were a couple of things that did stand out to me that I found, somewhat kind of interesting or to think about. And maybe the main one that kind of goes throughout this whole film is just the idea of like trust and who can you trust. You need like a Excel spreadsheet to like keep up with who's working with who, and there's almost every couple scenes someone's double crossing or backstabbing someone or betraying and switching sides, and it makes for some of the fun of the movie. And there's some of them that I genuinely just did not see coming that did surprise me. But people are they're all bad, selfish people that are just sort of in it for themselves and going back and forth. But that whole like don't trust anyone, even me, sort of that vibe throughout the film. It's kind of contrasted. There is a scene where kind of one of the baddies is talking to his father and kind of asking his father, like, do you not have like faith in me to accomplish what I want to do and to save the family and stuff? And the father kind of looks over there at cathedral, the famous cathedral in Barcelona, and says like, no, like I have faith in him. And he kind of does the Catholic crucifix, then kind of walks off. And this sort of sets up this contrast of like, we can trust God. God is sort of the exception, but all the people on earth that are not God, you can't trust them. We're all selfish. And I don't know. It just seemed like kind of an interesting moment in the film that in a movie that didn't necessarily have a whole lot else to kind of say. And maybe just the other thing, the other sort of theme that unifies this is kind of established right at the start is this sort of this idea of like lost and found, like something that's lost as opposed to something that's gone. Some of the characters kind of repeat. Kind of saying, something that's lost can be found. Like something that's gone is just gone, but something that's lost can be found. And there's sort of multiple meanings to that in the film. Obviously, part of it is this treasure that's lost can be found. It's a treasure hunt movie, but I think kind of like parallel to that is this kind of the discovery of like Tom Holland's character, and he is sort of himself lost adrift from his kind of hard life that he has, sort of this orphan who's trying to find his own way, and kind of like as he's trying to find this lost treasure, he's also finding himself and kind of realizing that he doesn't necessarily want to be the same kind of character as Wahlberg and some of these other hardened criminals that are selfish. So there is sort of a sense, not in like a, Amazing Grace, once was lost and now found kind of like cheesy way, but just, as far as just finding yourself and, you're not too far gone to kind of do that. So again, this isn't a film that has a lot to say necessarily, but those are a couple of themes that did stand out to me. So in the end, I enjoyed this movie. I maybe enjoyed it more than a lot of people will, just because I don't have like the stigma or expectations of the video game, and I'm not bothered by the fact that things aren't like the video game, or maybe they are like the video game. And I tend to enjoy these kind of dumb National Treasure type films. I don't think it's a great movie. Whenever you're talking about a movie in the advice, just don't think too hard about it. That says something about the movie. But I think for people that maybe aren't coming in like me, that don't have a whole lot of expectations and just want to accept sort of this fun throwback National Treasure, Indiana Jones kind of film, I think there's a lot to enjoy in this film. And there's nothing like super off-putting or like gratuitous or bad about this film that would keep like a Christian viewer away. So I don't know. I enjoyed it better than most video game movies, even if that is a low bar to set. But let me know if you saw this movie. Maybe especially if you're like a video game player, and you can like let me know if this film lived up to sort of the expectations of it, or if it just took all the lore and stuff and threw it in the trash. Let me know what you thought of this film. Love to have a conversation with you guys about that. If you haven't done so, I encourage you guys, like this video, subscribe to our channel. Got a lot of other video or movie reviews and live streams and this fun stuff we do here at The Collision. Love to have you join us for that. But most of all, guys, stay safe and continue to collide with your world for Christ.